Just recently, a client that I haven't worked with much recently just about gave me a heart attack. And I'll tell you the full story in a few moments. But have you ever wondered why riding this green line of success up into becoming known as the Rockstars in your industry is so challenging, and why there's so few leaders and companies ever do it, and why staying there is actually even more challenging? And why is it that some organisations languish down here in the crisis zone where they're in real trouble and life is horrifically challenging? And how come so many organisations find themselves riding this amber zone where they have a few highs and a few lows and a few highs and a few lows, but over a period of time, let's say 5 years, they find themselves pretty much in the same place as where they started? We call that amber line the good enough line. It's kind of good enough, but they're really not setting the world on fire. Well, the answer to that is what we call drift, right? And very few organisations or few people actually fall off this green line. They actually behave their way off the green line. And that's what was happening with this client that I was working intently with a few years ago, but not so much recently. Together, we did a body of work that put them on this green line to becoming known as the rock stars in their industry. And recently they contacted me, letting me know that their people and culture team was expanding. Exciting, right? Not so fast. They wanted me to help them set up the benchmarking process for the new role of recruitment and employment coordinator. And that's when my heart came galloping out of my mouth. I immediately realised we had a problem. They were in danger of drifting off this green line and behaving their way back to the amber line. Why? Not because they don't care, but because they let their language slip. Think about that title, recruitment and employment. Does that sound more like a command and control culture, or does it resonate with being a high-performing rock star culture? For me, it suggests a fairly traditional, transactional type description of the role, focused on tasks and rule books. It lacks the engagement and empowerment that you might want to communicate for a team that is focused on being rock stars in their industry. More shortly about what I suggested as a job title instead. But here's the truth. The word you choose, whether that's a job title, it's an everyday conversation, or it's an announcement to the team, the words you use tell a story about the culture you're creating and the performance you're probably getting because of it. Now, the body of work that I'd done with this client centered around the 4Bs framework. So I wanted to share with you why this job title mattered from a 4Bs and a high performance perspective. The first outcome that I absolutely obsess about is that of believing. And the language that we use either builds or breaks belief in people about how their contributions matter. Imagine this. Brand new team member, full of energy and fresh ideas, excited to make a difference. They eagerly propose a new approach during their first team meeting. And the leader's response is, we tried that before and it didn't work. Now, they don't even need to say it with tone. In that one phrase, the belief that their contributions matter is shattered, and the spark dims, and suddenly their sense of possibility shrinks. Instead of encouragement, they're met with resistance to innovation, a really quick way to disengage a high potential team member. Next, we have belonging. And when we talk about belonging in terms of the language we use and how it shapes how connected people feel to each other, to the team, and even to brands. The day after I gave that client some reminder coaching on job titles, I got a text from their CEO. She shared a story with me about her experience of waiting to board an Air New Zealand flight. The boarding announcement went like this: elites, business, premium, and ordinary. Can you imagine being called ordinary? It's just a word, right? But do you know anyone who wants to be called ordinary? Her text actually said, I thought of your coaching yesterday. That marketing department needs a kick up the seat. This is dreadful. On hearing her fellow passengers being called ordinary, She felt a great deal of discomfort and outrage. Mega fail on behalf of Air New Zealand. Then the next outcome that we absolutely obsess about is behaving. Right, behaving. And another client of mine who organisationally have led with a command and control style since the 1960s is now working hard to drive a new culture. And one of the first things I shared with them was words matter. And the reason for this is because they use the title supervisor, and that word alone holds their culture back. They're starting to understand why it's been so challenging to shift their culture while they have supervisors in the building. I mean, you think about it. Who would you rather be led by, a supervisor or a team leader? One implies control and distrust. The other implies empowerment and collaboration. And interestingly, the words they use in everyday language in that organisation, it speaks to the supervisor role that these people take and how their people respond accordingly. You and I both know that a supervisor acts in a different way to people who are leaders. They choose different words. They choose different things to focus on, thereby getting quite different behaviours and outcomes from their team. Language matters. If we want to stay on that green line of rockstar performance, we need to be incredibly intentional about the words we use. Leaders who use empowering language inspire better behaviours. They create teams that are engaged and proactive. On the flip side, command and control language stifles creativity and energy, leading to compliance rather than engagement. And finally, we have the bottom line. But you know what? I don't just talk about a bottom line because, yeah, of course, bottom line, we all need to make a profit, right? But what I like to call it is a profoundly bold bottom line. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's not just about delivering performance. That's a given. Profits, like oxygen for us humans, are essential to thriving. But neither of those, profits or oxygen, are the real reason for existence, are they? You have to have them, but there's a bigger purpose. It's about creating a culture where people know their work is a meaningful use of their time on this planet. Isn't that the type of leader you want to be? The type of experience you want to have? Doing work that makes a meaningful use of your own and the people who you work with or who work with you, how they make a meaningful use of your and their time on this planet. When you have got that language right, you will see people's belief in the impact of what they do. You'll see it come up. They will work more collaboratively with their team and their customers, internal and external, and the behaviours that they use will drive the results that are profound, that are bold. And this is at the heart of what we do and what you need to do to build a team of rock stars. Your takeaway today is words shape your culture and ultimately they drive the results you get both individually and collectively. FYI, I suggested to that client that a stronger title for their new role would be Selection and Connection Coordinator. The work remains the same, but the focus is entirely different. How this new member of the people and culture team will treat people, what they focus on, and how they interact with the larger team will shift dramatically with that different title, Selection and Connection. Selection and Connection reflects a more holistic, engaging, energizing, and empowering approach to recruitment and governance. So as I said, the work will stay the same. It's the approach that'll change because this title implies not just choosing the right candidate, selection, and making sure the employment, the governance tasks and the risks that need to be managed in the business, making sure all of that's taken care of. It says it is that and much more. It's also about connecting people with their rights and responsibilities as employees, and it is about building relationships and creating a sense of community while we ensure we comply with any legislative requirements. It emphasises the importance of both initial selection and ongoing engagement in creating a thriving workforce. And that will have radically different outcomes for the individual in the role, the people they interact with, and the business. So as you think about your team and your workplace, ask yourself, are we just aiming for the good enough line, getting a few highs and a few lows, but pretty much ending up where we were at the end of 5 years or so? Or are we committed to putting ourselves on this green line and riding it to Rockstar and delivering a profoundly bold bottom line where people thrive, where language empowers, and we create a lasting impact? So my challenge to you is this. Think about the job titles you're using. What story do they tell your team and your marketplace? That's the simple challenge. The bigger challenge is, I want you to monitor your language over the next several weeks. Ask yourself, am I talking in a way that builds believing, belonging, and behaving, driving that profoundly bold bottom line? Or am I using language that diminishes, that takes people and puts them in the coerced performer zone rather than the rockstar zone? So good luck, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.